Okay, recording in progress. So I will deep dive directly into this topic, how to recognize bossing, because it's very important. And I'm very pleased to welcome Martina Zerzava-Libritska to talk about this topic, firstly as a victim, and also she has a huge experience around the statistics, like how to recognize this and like what importantly what to do if you are in the environment that is very toxic for you, that you experiencing some negativity, but you are not maybe even aware that is kind of like bigger issue than you think. So Martina, thank you so much for joining, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me, Adriana. So I'm Martina. Many of you probably know me because I know a lot of you are following me on LinkedIn. I'm the one who's Marty SEO, and I am a victim of bossing. I openly say it. For many years, I just was scared to talk about it. But the more I mentor SEO people, the more I see how important it is speaking also about these topics. Bossing can happen to anyone, regardless of personality, regardless of race, religion, position, literally to everyone. And what is bossing? So, bossing is like some kind of an abusive, toxic behavior, either by a coworker, supervisor, or a manager. And abusers are usually in some superior positions, and they often also involve other colleagues and employees. And those are then actually afraid to call out the abusers, even though they witness this behavior is just happening.
Mm-hmm. And
And
yeah, thank you so much, firstly, for sharing that and kind of like highlight that you were a victim, because it's a huge vulnerability, but it's also huge strength. And thank you so much for that, because if we are not talking about this, then we can't basically provide the value and like talk to people like, hey, maybe something, even you think that something is wrong in your work environment, you should like listen this and like see and check the boxes. So basically to learn that this is something like it's a bigger issue. It's not your insecurity, it's not your lack of confidence, it's not your something, it's a higher level issue. So thank you so much for it. And basically, before we move on, and I know that like you prepare some statistic about this, because like whenever we mention bossing and how to recognize this, like people are not aware how often this is a case. And we are thinking that it's maybe just like some of few cases, that maybe few of companies, but like these statistics will provide and show how common this issue is, but people are just like not aware of it. So can you let us know about these statistics that you found?
yeah, sure. And that's the reason why I was actually even looking for some statistics, because when I was preparing for this recording, I was thinking, yeah, but there might be a lot of people who'll be like, I know this is a rare thing that's happening.
Mm,
And I was wondering whether someone actually made a statistic. And I found out that the Harris Poll conducted a toxic bosses survey in October 2023. Uh, it was done only in the US, but the sample was 1,233 employed adults across all generations. And it says that 71% of coworkers have had a toxic boss at one point in their careers. That's a lot. I mean, 71% is really a lot. 31% are currently working with one, which is even worse because it's nearly like one third of the employees. And it's very sad. 71% of workers also said that they have anxiety on weekends about returning to work on Monday. Um, I
especially Sunday. Sunday is the worst
Sunday is
day.
the worst, and I remember I also had that. I didn't like Sunday because for me it was like too close to the working week. 53% say they have nightmares about their toxic bosses. So basically, these people don't even get a proper time to relax. So when they're awake, they face these struggles at work with bossing, and when they sleep, it's the same thing for more than half of the people that this survey questioned. 41% have sought therapy because of a toxic boss. It's actually a good thing that these people actually were looking for a therapist. But considering that, for example, in the US and most of the countries, people have to pay for it, it also costs a lot when you have boss like that. 66% of people with a toxic boss say they're actively job hunting, yet most 72% have to stay in their job for financial reasons, and 65% cannot quit because they would lose their benefits.
Mm-hmm. And all this statistic is just like from 1,200.
Um,
Basically, if we have just like more people, 10,000, how much like these numbers would be higher? And like even if we have just like these 1,000s, like 1/3 of them is still huge.
it is indeed.
Yeah. So how to actually recognize these things, because it's so tricky, you know, like it's not something that you can say like, hey, immediately this is toxic, this is bossing, because in our nature is like to question ourselves, especially
Mm,
when we are joining these companies and we are having lack of confidence. Imposter syndrome is huge. Usually this bossing is coming from the positions that are above us, that we
yeah.
looking towards kind of in some idol, you know, like people that we want to become as like from the leadership positions in the start, you know, like we are looking up to these people. And then it is so common to actually go down to think that is problem in you, that is not
Yeah,
problem in your environment.
yeah,
So how to
exactly.
recognize these?
And I will just add one more thing about what you said. It's also because we were mostly like brought up this way that we should, respect like people that are like above us in certain structures, etc. So this is also like one of the reasons why we always like keep
Mm.
questioning ourselves and why it takes us so much time to really identify that there is this possible issue of bossing, for example.
Oh
And
yeah.
when it comes to bossing and how we can identify them, so I would say that there are certain patterns that create like a hostile environment and an unhealthy environment in general. Uh, One of it can be, for example, humiliation. Uh, so when the person starts sharing personal or sensitive information about you, that's definitely not good. If it starts happening too often, then it's an alert, and
Mhm.
you should really try to stop that. Also, undermining confidence, like using sarcasm and making some derogatory comments towards you and not other coworkers, that's also not okay. I don't say every single time this needs to be bossing, but if you're not okay with like any of these, you have to say you're not okay with it and you have to stop it. Criticizing you in front of your colleagues or reprimanding you in front of the colleagues is also kind of a humiliation. Uh, and this is important also for other people to know that, because they may not be facing it directly, but they just might witness something like this is happening within their team or within their unit or within their organization. And they can also call it out. I know it's not comfortable calling things out, especially if you feel like that's none of my business because it's not happening to me. But sometimes, these victims are just scared to raise their voice. And maybe they just wish that someone else just could do it for them. So if you're that kind of a personality that doesn't have an issue calling things out, just do it even for them, because it can do a lot and it's going to mean a lot for them and for their mental health, because this is extreme mental load for someone who's experiencing humiliation in the workplace. uh,
Mhm.
the other one could be unrealistic expectations, but you wanted to say something, right?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but this, I really love that you mentioned like calling out like for someone else, because
Mm.
just like putting in the situation that like the victim in that moment needs a huge capacity to see these things and to stand out for themselves, versus just like if we are seeing, yeah, something is off, like manager or whoever in the company doesn't need to be like that. It's easier for us, and it's more impactful when we are saying this instead of that person, because the difference between us and them, it's huge, and like they need so many times, they need like so much effort, therapy, standing up for themselves. But like for us, it's just like maybe some kind of like much more easier, because we have clear thing, we are seeing what is happening, and we are third person who can say something, like.
And also, I think that many victims are basically, when this happens, they're like paralyzed, like mentally paralyzed, because, like you said, a lot of stuff is going on within them, and it's not that they don't want to fight for their rights. They do, but they just mentally cannot afford it.
Mm-hmm. And this is also trauma, and it's very common that like this is something that already happened them in the past, like from the parents, from
Yeah.
some young people around them in the schools, in the colleges, at the work before. So
Yeah.
these peoples are already vulnerable, and like are already kind of experience that, like, because like when you're seeing a person who is very confident, nobody will attack that person, because like these people who are bossing, they are kind of like like in the animal worlds, like they are finding this victim on their own,
Yeah, they're
like.
hunting the prey. Yeah, yeah. Usually, I
Yes,
think it's
yes.
like that. And you're right. Like these interactions, unpleasant and unhealthy interactions, open the wounds from the past, which doesn't help the whole situation at all. I
it's
agree with
it's even worse, like, because in that moment the victim is not traumatized for the first time, is re-traumatized for the second, third time, and it's just like
that.
it's whole suitcase that like the person is coming with.
Yeah. Yeah. So another point would be unrealistic expectations. Uh, so your supervisor, your boss, gives you impossible deadlines, gives you workloads that are exceeding what's reasonable in your position, penalizes you for failing to meet like their unreasonable goals. Also, those expectations like being available like 24/7 or beyond, like working hours. This should be a no go. This should be the alert. Like when you say, "Oh, I'm not treated right. This is not correct. I have to deal with it." Part of this is also a micromanagement. Giving you like instructions without like considering your inputs, your feedbacks, constantly monitoring what you're doing, your work, controlling every small detail, um, controlling you when you start working, when you go to the to the toilet, going, lunch breaks, etc. This is just not right. If it's not happening like across organization, and if the organization is not doing this to every single employee, that's
Mm-hmm.
basically micromanagement. Uh, this is what I was actually dealing with. I was attacked by a manager that I wasn't like working enough, but we had very flexible hours at the corporate I was working, and it was more based on like KPIs. So whether you met the goals, it was just okay. But this manager specifically just wanted everyone to be there all the time, and she didn't care if someone is there and is not doing anything, and someone other is there and is doing something. Uh, so basically, she was It was a woman. I was bossed by a woman. Uh, and she was just checking on me too often. So what I had to do, and that was stupid, like knowing it, no, just looking at it now, like didn't know it back then. I ended up in a situation where I wrote down every single thing I was doing and I was tracking time I was doing it.
Did
Meaning,
she ask that from you?
no, but I was, let's say, preparing for unpleasant discussions
Mm-hmm.
because she was saying things like, "You never, you always." This is something I will be also speaking about. Um, yeah, and I just wanted to be prepared for that. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're forced to do that, that's not okay. Like
Yeah.
I understand when I did that, I just needed to have an alibi. I needed to show her like, look, I tracked everything down for like past 2 weeks. And this is the complete schedule of me coming in and just checking out. But that's just crazy and no one should do that, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And like we feel that something is not right, like in these moments. For example, my first team lead, she was always making some comments. For example, when I ask a question, like she would say like, you should already know that, like when I ask another question, she said like, oh, you are hired because of your experience, like. And for example, in these moments, I noticed like something was off, but it didn't put me in the immediate kind of like, oh, let's check the let's check the boxes of the bossing, or like, is it toxic environment, or this is something. But our initial thought is something is off, but we are not allowing ourselves to think more about this. Oh, this
Mhm.
is off. This is odd. Maybe I shouldn't be treated like this, because like we always try to find a problem in ourselves. Like, oh, I need to work more. I don't need to ask questions. I need to prepare myself for the meetings. I need to prepare myself for the work. So basically, the first thought is right, something is off, but we are not allowing ourselves to think more. We go to totally opposite direction, trying to fix this, trying to work more, trying to put all what we are doing, trying to prepare ourselves, work harder, work more, like, and then we are losing that connection because we are trying to find solution is something that is not a problem. We are not the problem. The problem is on opposite side.
So basically, she wasn't allowing you to be autonomous. So she was stealing that autonomy from you, which is also like micromanagement.
Yeah,
That's not okay.
yeah.
And also, like micromanagement would be not letting people to be decision makers in their area of expertise because that's what
Hmm.
they are hired for. And if these things start happening, that's also micromanagement.
Yeah.
That's just,
And also any kind of like criticism that we are getting, but it's not in the positive way, like it's not something. For example, when we are brainstorming and like the comments are not motivational for us to come up with the new ideas, it's just like pushing like all the ideas down, like. And especially managers and especially like team members who are higher on that like level, they skill is to encourage us and motivate us to brought the best of ourselves, like. And if that is not something that you are in the company, something is off, like, because every manager wants to bring the best of their employees. They want to motivate them. They want to encourage them. They want to check their problems. They want to fix their problems, like. And if you are not feeling supported in that way, something is off,
exactly.
like. It doesn't matter if it's toxic, if it's bossing, if it's like, this is not a good place for your growth.
Yeah. Like in general, so if your manager doesn't want you to grow, that's weird.
Yeah, that's weird. And like the problem is not in us.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So when you mentioned like those interactions during the meetings. So yeah, like the inconsistency and unfair treatment is also one of those things that are a red flag. So you mentioned treating you differently than your colleagues without like valid reasons. Also applying rules and policies selectively, um, or targeting them on specific individuals. Uh, this is what was happening to me with my. We didn't clock in, but she was speaking about it all the time, like if we had to do it. And she specifically wanted me to be at work exact time, but other people didn't have to do it, and it was even a company policy that you could come to work when you wanted and you could go from work when you wanted.
And
So
when we see that like a lot of these boxes are checked in, what is the action that actually we can do? Because like even like we have so many overwhelming thoughts, I will be fired, I can't talk, like it's my issue, like I should work on this. Like what about some kind of like harmless actions that we can at least try doing and then see how it goes, and then like we will provide kind of like more serious ones.
So what you probably do at the beginning, I think, is you talk to like your partner at home about it, your friends, because you just need someone to assure you that it's not you anymore, that it's really about the other person, you know, and you just can't change the other person. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you receive this like empathy from others and this confirmation it's not you, let's say you gain another strength, like you start protecting yourself. Usually what you do is just documenting like specific incidents, uh, because if you want to talk to someone within that organization, the first thing they will pretty likely ask you is like, what happened and how many times exactly did that happen? So, documenting these incidents first is not an issue because if someone's bossing you, it just happens on a daily basis. Um, and it's better for you when you have to talk about it because you don't have to, you know, look through your mind and find out when it could happen, because if you write it down, then they can say, oh, this is all made up, especially if you just keep writing it down and there's like more records of it. So what I did, I spoke first with the HR representative, and I wanted to discuss the issue with HR. The first HR told me that uh, she has known her for a very long time and she doesn't really think she's doing these things in a level that I am explaining or describing. And I was fed up, so I just quit that interview with this HR, and I was pissed, honestly, like.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided I will not contact the government because in the Czech Republic you can report this also to the government representatives, which is an issue for any organization. And I still didn't want to solve this on a global level because it was a very large organization. So I contacted the HR manager, who was a foreigner and who was absolutely shocked when I contacted him about this. He was sitting with me for about 90 minutes, listening to me what I had to say. And he promised me to act. He even told me that he will act no matter what I do next. He told me I can report it globally as the violation of code of conduct or the breach of code of conduct,
Mm-hmm.
and that I can even turn to the government if I feel I have to do it. He said it's my right and it's absolutely okay if I want to do it. Um, and I remember I didn't do it back then. I remember him speaking with her. She immediately stopped talking to me, which was a huge relief. I didn't need to talk to her anyway. So, uh,
That's
because she
good.
wasn't she wasn't my direct manager actually, so she was the manager of my direct manager.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't need to communicate with her on daily basis at all. So it stopped, but seeing that she still remained in the company that had very specific values, etc., I feel sorry I actually didn't report her as the violation of code of conduct, because I think it's the safest side. Um, in many organizations, when you report the code of conduct violation, there are people from different parts of the world who are solving the issues, meaning that those people don't know the abusers
Mm-hmm.
or the problem makers, which is good. Because if you don't know these people personally, if you haven't worked with them for years, your approach will be different towards them because you were not friends with them. So
Yes.
you will make it and keep it as professional as possible. While when you work with them, let's say you will still somehow like try to sort it out, but it will not have consequences. And with this abuser, so I found out that she already was doing this almost every single time when she was working within that organization. So I feel really sorry that I didn't report it to the global, because I know that they would just fire her for this kind of behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you did something that was in the capacity, and then and like at least you did something, like, and
Yeah.
definitely, like it it's a huge even step for you that you already did that, like, and we always, regardless the situation, we always think like, oh, should I do this something like differently, should it better, so
Mm.
like, no, at that then, like, you did a great thing, and like huge thing for you, you win yourself, so it is something that needed to be done. And definitely, like, like these people, uh, they can't do like for any kind of like number of years they want, like we have some kind of like, doesn't matter like what you believe in, like is it universe, god, like doesn't matter, but like, like they are paying that, they are like kind of like
Yeah.
that. So at least, but in these moments, like, did you think about leaving the company, and like how long have you stayed there after this?
Not long, but actually, I had been thinking of leaving the company before this incident started happening. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it wasn't like exit strategy. And that's what I wanted to say, that many people might be just so scared of reporting bossing that they actually start planning their exit strategy, or
Mm-hmm.
they may start looking for transfer opportunity, for example. But there's one thing everybody needs to remember: it's that the abusers will just never stop unless they're being like investigated and somewhat punished, because that power they create just stays too good for them, and it grows with every victim.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I understand that some people might be scared, but considering that this has a huge impact and it affects your mental health, and you have to start planning your exit strategy and looking for a new role, this is extremely demanding for most. I would say for most people, regardless of how strong you are or how strong you feel you need to be at that situation.
Yeah, because you already lost your capacity for like thinking clearly, managing yourself, controlling the situation, and then you're trying to fix the problem again where is not the problem, and trying for applying new jobs, but also that scarcity, and like then you're scary that maybe that person will find out, that like recruiters will tell the company, and you're just like the brain pattern is just like overthinking like what will happen. So even like that journey of applying for new jobs will not be enjoyable, like you will be like stressed and frustrated. So but
Mhm.
if you have the capacity for doing that, like please do that, like like whatever is best for you. But also when you are leaving the company, you will have the opportunity to say why you did this, like because like even in that way you are helping.
Yeah, yeah. And if you decide to stay but not report it, I think the downplaying bossing is just not worth it in the long run because the cost is just too high. You will need help, like from a psychologist or a therapist, and it's just not worth it for any money in the world. I mean,
Yes. As long as you are in that wrong train, like it will take longer to take you out.
yes, yes.
All right. So, do you think there is anything important that we didn't mention for this topic that should and would help like people who are currently in this situation to get some kind of like advice that we didn't mention?
No, I think we mentioned everything, but I would suggest to people who really feel like they're drowning in it, find professional help. Just seek it, because it's important, and it's just not going to fade away if it impacts you so much.
All right. Okay, so thank you so much for this episode and for sharing your knowledge and story. So I will put and upload this recording probably by the end of the next week.
Okay.
So probably it will be on Sundays because I know from my clients Sundays are definitely worse day for these people because they had Saturday, like to a little bit like relax and think and like they know that like Sunday they don't need to work on Sunday. So Saturday is the best day for them, but also Sunday is the worst day because torture is coming to
Yeah.
start again.
So basically, you never have a time off because it's one
Yes.
day like nothing, during the whole
No
week.
evenings, no holidays, no anything. You just like you're constantly thinking like about the torture and what will be next, and you're just like overthinking the situation, and then you are going through the situation that are really happening. It's just like circle. All right. So thank you so much, and thank you one more time for this.
Thank you, Adriana.